Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Trevor Hall. I'm with the Colorado School of Mines Office of Special Programs and Continuing Education here in Golden, Colorado. I would like to welcome you, all of you, to this morning's presentation with Mike Vincent. We'll be going over his Optimizing Fracs in a Low-Price Environment short course, which will be held here on campus in August. So this is just a brief description, shouldn't last any more than 15-20 minutes, and we will provide enough time for Q&A at the end of his presentation. If you do have questions, feel free to type them into the moderated chat, which should be in the bottom right hand of your screen. Once those questions are submitted, we will be able to see them from our seats, but we will not. The audience will not be able to see them. So we will address those questions at the end of the presentation. But before I formally introduce Mike, I do have a short video presentation to share with you, just going over what special programs and continuing education is here on campus, and I will hope you enjoy. Thank you.
Colorado School of Mines, a public research university devoted to sciences of earth, energy, and environment. Our campus in Golden, Colorado harbors some of the world's most talented students, faculty, and professional researchers in the areas of Earth's resources and applied sciences. At Mines, we realize education in these fields do not end after graduation. As stewards of Earth's natural resources, we are also responsible to educate and train global professionals in current trends, techniques, and practices. We passionately believe learning, no matter the field, is a lifelong process, and our programs for industry, educators, and international delegations reflect this credence. For more than 30 years, the Office of Special Programs and Continuing Education has welcomed industry professionals from all over the world to participate in professional short courses, seminars, and conferences. These programs allow professionals the opportunity to engage with Mines faculty, industry experts, and colleagues in peer-to-peer academic settings. Every year, our catalog of courses includes topics in oil and gas, mining, metallurgy, economics, project management, investments, leadership, and executive education. A complete list of courses can be found online at www.csmspace.com. Whether you are a Mines alum, previous course participant, or a professional in industry, we welcome you to join us. We hope our courses and programs will serve you in your pursuit for lifelong learning and professional development.
Okay, well, thanks for that, for paying attention to that. And without further ado, I would like to introduce today's presenter, Mike Vincent. Mike is a consulting engineer with more than 25 years experience specializing in fracture optimization and training. And after completing his degree here at Colorado School of Mines, he worked with Amoco, Arco, and Carbo prior to becoming an independent consultant in 1996. His work primarily focuses upon helping clients improving fracture designs by accurately predicting production under realistic conditions. So Mike, thanks for being here with us today, and I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks for the intro, Trevor. The purpose of today's presentation really is to give you an overview of what a 3-day course offered in August will cover. So we'll quickly move through and give you an indication of what the content will be, what my presentation style is, and some of the format of the class. This is the list that's been advertised, the draft outline actually. The first 12 people that sign up will have some opportunity to improve some suggestions or some alterations on what we emphasize in the class. But my intent is to talk briefly about unconventional reservoirs and describe why hydraulic fracturing has really just changed the game, has really brought a lot of these resources into production. A brief summary of some of the fundamental processes of hydraulic fracturing, and then we'll get into some field data. There are some fields in the world that we don't need proppant, that we can just crack the rock with water, and those fractures will not immediately close or heal. And it's important to understand that. We can certainly save some cost in these rare fields that don't need proppant. Approximately 90 to 95% of the fields in the world require some kind of a propping agent, sand or ceramic or resin-coated materials that prop those fractures open and sustain production. So we'll spend about an hour and a half to 2 hours talking about proppants. We will review the available frac fluids. There are wells that we fracked with liquid nitrogen or liquid CO2, cryogenic fluids. We frack with foams. We can frack with gels or with slick water. So we'll talk about some of the characteristics of those fluids, some of the pros and cons of each. Our next subject will be to talk about gel damage. Any of the fluids that we inject do some damage both to the reservoir, to the proppant pack, and to the fracture face itself. And we'll cover some of the issues and concerns and how to do the best we can on that issue. We'll then talk about slick water fracturing. The people in the class always like this topic. I use a lot of videos to describe proppant transport in slick water and give you a lot better visual, conceptual understanding of what these fractures look like and where the proppant is. Then we get into field results. Really the emphasis of an optimization class is to talk about how to make the most money. How do we optimize the amount of oil and gas that come out of these wells at an acceptable price? My anticipation here is that we will briefly cover some vertical tight gas wells, perhaps DJ Basin, Wyoming, some things of local interest. But again, the case studies will be customized based on the audience interest. Horizontal wells, I anticipated perhaps using one or two Barnett examples, but more emphasis on things like the Bakken and the Niobrara. We could do some Eagle Ford, some Marcellus if the group is interested. So again, I will customize all of the field examples based on what the enrollees ask for during the registration process. Then increasingly now I'm getting a lot of interest in refrac courses. Most of the courses I'm teaching this year are on re-stimulation of wells. So I'm anticipating this will be a 2 to 3 hour session. It can certainly be longer if I get that kind of feedback from the registrants. And then the last topic, kind of wrap everything up, put a bow on it, and summarize what frac optimization is about and some of the ideas that we learned in the class. So that's the general course outline that I'm starting from. Some of the highlights are re-stimulation and how to best select the candidates. What we should do now that commodity prices have dropped. Certainly we need to change our frac optimization strategy, and I'll give you some thoughts on that. And then some wrap up with a lot of bullet points saying where are the most effective ways to reduce costs without damaging our well potential. So that's the meat of the class. This class will be very focused on field results. So yes, I show a handful of lab experiments that better illustrate some of the why some things are working, but the focus is on production outcome. One reference that will be provided to all registrants is an appendix, a tabulation of 200 different field trials around the world that I've history matched and tried to understand why when people altered their frac design, it impacted production. So even if you're in a new field that's not one of these 200, sometimes you can dig through the appendix and you can say, you know, here's how an analog field worked in another country, and we're going to take a jump start by applying some of the things that they learned. Instead of looking just at a holistic industry-wide example, we'll look at specific wells. This is a specific well that was producing at approximately 400 barrels a day from the initial frac job, and we'll look at all the details of how the frac was implemented. The first time the well was re-stimulated, we will examine the frac design and try to understand why this well increased to 1,000 barrels a day. The incremental production that was at least accelerated during that time period was over 500,000 barrels of oil. And then we'll look at a third frac injection pumped through the same perforations and bringing this well to a peak rate of over 3,500 barrels a day. So when you have real examples like this, you can go back and analyze the results and try to get a better understanding of how these fracs are performing. In terms of the fields that we emphasize, Again, the first 12 enrollees will be diverted to a box where they're allowed to type in fields that they're interested in. I also encourage you to list topics that you would really like to have emphasized. And I will customize the slide pack based on that early feedback. Even beyond the first 12 enrollees, I hope that box will remain active where at least I can get some feedback up front as to where to emphasize topics, even though the slide pack may be completed by that time. One thing this class will not be is overly theoretical. This is not a math-based frac design class. Many of the classes I teach are very detailed, very technical, but that's a design class. In an optimization class, in this entire 3 days, I intend to show you only 2 equations. And the purpose of showing you the equations is to help you understand what assumptions are being made, what correlations are being used in some models, and help you understand some of the shortcomings of those equations. So instead, this class is designed to be very conceptual. I want everyone to have a visual image. I want them to have a picture in their mind of how these fracs, what the geometry is and how they perform over time. I have more than 100 photos and animations throughout the course. On this particular slide, we're looking at a cross-section of a ceramic bead and show you some concerns in how this material is made. The middle image is a ball-activated sliding sleeve where a ball shifts the sleeve to allow a frac to initiate. And the right-hand image is a mine back of an actual fracture with different colors of proppant in it. And we'll talk about some of the ramifications of that. So in addition to using a lot of images, this class will have a lot of tangible materials. I'll have desks out with core samples, with frac fluid samples that you can handle, and you can get a better grasp again of the details. Another thing this class will not include is use of a frac model. We are not running Frac Pro or MFrac or Gopher, so we're not running a propagation simulator in this class. Instead, this class is focused on production optimization and how we might alter the frac design to increase the oil and gas rates. If you want to pursue simulation training, that can happen before or after this class. Equally effective. There's really not a preference in the sequence that you take the courses. My classes are always very interactive. As an example, we will use clickers, we'll have quizzes, and we'll bring up examples. Here is a horizontal well in the Bakken. It's a bilateral well, a dual lateral. And we'll go through the details of how the well was initially stimulated. And then we'll have a group quiz saying, what if we inject water down this well? No proppant, just a high rate water injection, bullheaded from the surface with no isolation. So that water is going to go wherever it wants to go. And we'll try to take some guesses as to what we think will happen based on what we've learned in the class. And then we'll look at actual production results to try to understand that. So here's the initial well, its decline after a propped frac. After a refrac that's unpropped, just a high rate water injection, this well was essentially made brand new. After a third or a trifrac, unpropped, we didn't see quite the incremental benefit, but a very interesting profile with some longer sustained duration than most of us expected. The most important part of this exercise is when the group discusses the mechanisms, tries to understand this work because we're dissolving salt out of an existing frac. If we think that's the explanation, what trial should we do next? If this were our well, what would we do on the subsequent well? And based on what we think we've learned, how much money can we save? What can we do to reduce future development costs? This class is very focused on challenging conventional wisdom. I am adamant that fracs are not what we simulate. Fracs are not simple vertical planes. They are not infinitely conductive. They are not durable. And after we accept that, then we can move forward on how to approach things differently. So again, we will look at photographs of actual mine backs of what the frac geometry looked like. We will examine core throughs where people have pumped fracs and then drilled an adjacent well and cored through that frac and brought it to surface. And then many times we find unbroken frac gel, we find pulverized proppant, and we'll try to reconcile those observations and use that in our frac design thinking. This class will not focus on basic textbook information. Instead, we're going to try to look at field results and things that challenge our thinking. The class is very interactive. I will encourage everyone to ask questions throughout. If I don't get enough dialogue, I almost always do, but if not, I will solicit those questions. So I'll begin the conversation if you don't. Comments that I get from my class is that the presentation is very clear, things are very visual. I'm focused on everyone in the course getting it. And in many operators' offices, when I teach courses, the receptionist, the temporary person, will come in and sit in for a few hours, and they say they understand what we're talking about. So the lingo is hard to catch up with, but the concepts are clear. The handouts I provide are excellent, very detailed. One criticism of my approach is that my slides are often very busy. I often have a handful of SPE paper references at the bottom. So sometimes visually on the screen there's a lot of information, but there's a compromise there in order to give you a reference that will be useful in the future. If you want to look at gel cleanup, there will be a half a dozen of what I consider the best references to start from. And overall, this class I think is very fun. Hydraulic fracturing is a very interesting, very cool topic. There's a lot to learn, a lot of exciting things. I'll show you some enormous upside. The industry is not capturing all the potential they could. And I'm enthusiastic. I enjoy the class. Most people that leave my course send me feedback suggesting that they were just excited about it and they're ready to go change something in their frac design. Everybody's always interested in cost. The cost is about $22.50. There is a discount for early enrollment, so mines can best plan their facilities and the room and the catering. And I looked through the dozens of examples of cost-saving suggestions that we'll cover in the class, and the lowest one in return saves about $50,000 per well. So if you select just the least valuable suggestion, you should get about a 20-fold return on your tuition. So there is some opportunity to save some costs. If you're interested in enrolling, most of you have already received a link, so you know how to get to the website, csmspace.com. Here is the full URL, and if you prefer to actually speak to a human, you can dial this number and get through. So we're just about ready to wrap up. Those of you that have some questions, you can continue to type them in. We have a handful of them already started in the chat box. But please, if you would, go ahead and add those in. And we'll start organizing and summarizing some of these questions.
Mike, there's a question that came in where we talk about CBM wells. Excuse me.
Okay, so coal bed methane, or coal seam gas as our Australian folks would refer to it. I do have a fair amount of information on coal bed methane. I've taught courses on it before. I was not anticipating covering that in this course, but if the first registrants ask for some, I would be delighted to include some local examples like the Powder River Basin, San Juan Basin, or Raton Basin.
And just a reminder, if you do have a question, you feel free to write in that question in the write a message box on the bottom right of the chat the screen where the chat box is located. Melody would like to know, will you cover details of sand mining or how to manufacture proppants?
I can. I have taught classes on that in the past. I was not anticipating that being part of this 3-day course. But if there's someone in the class that's particularly interested in it, we can cover that during a lunchtime or in an evening. Or if there's someone that attends the class that would like to know how ceramic proppants are made or how sand mines are operated, I have some videos and information that I could share after hours, or that I could just send them the PowerPoint slides later.
Okay. How about floods and thermal recovery?
I was not planning on doing anything on thermal recovery or on steam floods. I, again, have a fair amount of information on how proppants behave inside of gravel-packed steam floods. So in most steam injectors, we find that our proppants dissolve fairly rapidly, and I have a lot of information on that that I could share. I was not planning on covering that in the course unless somebody asks for it.
Okay. Owen had a question. Will mini frac and subsequent frac redesign be covered?
So mini fracs and subsequent, say that again, subsequent refracs?
Subsequent frac redesign.
Okay, so I understand the question now. For the rest of the audience, I think the question is, we can pump an early injection before our frac job. We can pump a small amount of fluid, create a fracture, and watch that fracture close. And as that fracture closes, how fast it closes and the pressures during that we can use to alter our subsequent frac design. Often we will reduce the pad size if we notice that the fluid doesn't leak off quickly. I was not intending on going in that detail into this frac optimization class. That is a topic I usually cover in a frac design class. Again, if there's someone if Owen, if you're really interested in that part, we can please put that on your enrollment, that's criteria that you want to see, and we'll at least include 15 or 20-minute conversation on it.
Oscar typed in, will case studies including microseismic data be included?
I do have that slated to show you microseismic maps on probably 6 or 8 different wells in different fields. I do not have a session devoted solely to microseismic. My purpose more is to show the microseismic map showed us that we created fractures that are 1,000 feet long, and we've reached or had a frac hit on adjacent wells within that spacing. So we have confirmation that the microseismic is indeed telling us the frac geometry. However, what I think I try to emphasize is that does not mean that entire half length remains productive. Very often we see that 6 months later, only a tiny fraction of that created volume remains hydraulically connected to the well.
And how about scale deposition and how to solve that?
I was not intending on talking about, so scale deposition is a chemical precipitate. We often see barium sulfate or calcium carbonate scale. Most operators are aware of that in their tubing, in their artificial lift, in their pumps. What operators might be less aware of is that scale is forming out inside the proppant pack itself. And I have a handful of slides that were designated to that topic, but I was not planning on teaching a seminar on scale remediation. I do have that kind of information. If there's a large number of people in the group that want to talk about it, we'll devote a half hour to it. If there's just 1 or 2 people, my preference would be to just share the slide pack with Oscar or whoever had asked that question.
So the participants will have the opportunity to get in touch with you prior to the course to talk about specific topics of interest. And so we want to make that clear that whether it's a phone call or an email prior to that, feel open to contact you and kind of put those little birds in your ear.
Absolutely, and the earlier the better, because I need to optimize the slide pack and get the handouts printed in advance. Right. So if people can say early on, boy, I really need to talk about scale remediation, we will either find a way to fit it inside the course, or we'll negotiate, hey, well, you just get a 1-hour session on your own for free some evening after a course. We'll have some further discussion.
Right. A lot of the faculty here on campus don't like emails the night before a test. So
that's a little challenging to accommodate all that the night before.
Right.
But as we go through things, I encourage throughout the seminar, even at the last minute, somebody says, oh, I think this is due to 100 mesh sand. What do you have on that? Can we talk about 100 mesh sand? And I use these audience clickers, and I'll have the group vote. Hey, how many of you are interested in stopping what we were doing and talking about 100 mesh sand? And if the group says, yes, let's do it, we'll jump over. People won't necessarily have the hard copy handouts in front of them. Mm-hmm. We'll cover the topic, and I'll make up for it somewhere else by shortening some other topic.
Let's see, we got another one in. John would like to know, will you touch on SRV geometry estimation?
Okay, so SRV is the stimulated reservoir volume, and that is most conventionally refers back to that previous question on microseismic from Oscar. If we see microseismic events that are extending some distance from a horizontal well, 500 feet, let's say, average half length, we can calculate, and we also know the frac height based on microseisms, we can calculate a volume of rock that we've argued we've stimulated or contacted. So that's the SRV. And this question specifically was, how do I estimate that geometry, I think. So often in the industry we talk about just shrink wrapping that volume. We know where our microseismic events are. If we could shrink wrap and enclose that volume of rock around our well, that's our SRV. However, what the evolving opinion is inside the industry is that is not a constant. Even though we touch enormous quantities of rock, it is very clear that we lose hydraulic half length or we lose SRV over time. So yes, I'll touch on it. We won't spend hours talking about SRV. We'll probably spend 10 minutes talking about concepts surrounding that.
While we still have people online, I do want to put up the information, the link to the event page where people can learn more about the course online, and then also registration information is there. But we still have more questions coming in. Eric would like to know, are the case studies equally split between Wattenberg and Bakken?
The case studies will be customized based on whatever the first 12 registrants tell me. What I had intended to do, if I get no feedback and nobody tells me what fields they're interested in, my expectation would be that I would show a vertical gas well in the Pinedale anticline. I'll show a handful of examples of fracs and refracs in the Bakken. I'll show studies of Niobrara vertical and horizontal wells in the DJ Basin. I might put in one coal bed methane example unless somebody's focused on that. I might put in a shallow oil reservoir. So no, I wouldn't say they're equally split. A lot of people have been asking about Eagle Ford and Marcellus. I might give a couple of highlights. But again, the purpose of this webinar is to encourage you to either email me or through your registration link, tell me what you want to see, and Eric, I will focus on what you ask.
We're kind of running out of time. Went a little bit longer than originally anticipated, but that's good. So if there are any last questions, feel free to type those into the chat box. And if there are some last questions coming in, I do want to thank you, Mike, for presenting your course. Again, on your screen is the URL, website information to where you can learn more about the course online, and also registration information. Do feel free to call us at the Space Office, 303-279-5563, if you're more comfortable talking to a human being. We have great people here in the office that would love to chat with you. But before we end things up, I do want to, one plug, we do have another course happening this summer where is definitely going to have some interest within the oil and gas industry as well, and that's Excellence Project Management for safer, better, faster, and cost-efficient projects. That's going to be happening in July here in Golden, Colorado as well, and you can go to csmspace.com for more information on that project management course as well. So without further ado, I don't see any more questions coming in, so we'll wrap things up. Okay. Thanks, Mike, and we look forward to hearing back from everybody who participated today. Thank you so much, and please enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.